Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that there are 3 stages of kilesa defilements. Vitekama kilesa are transgressive defilements that manifest in one's bodily and verbal behavior. Pariyuthana kilesa are the transgressive defilements that manifest in the mind. And anusaya kilesa are latent or dormant defilements that have not been uprooted by path knowledge. And yesterday, Sayadaw explained on the first Vitekama kilesa, transgressive defilements. Sayadaw explained what are the transgressive defilements. And Sayadaw also explained that in order to overcome Vitekama kilesa, one needs to refrain by practicing sila, morality. When one is practicing, when one is noting the presently arising object, there is nothing to be refrained from. But one has the volition to refrain when one meets things that should be refrained. Because the Cetana volition is there, the volition to refrain from things, it is called Samvaro Sila, it is called Sila, morality. So, by refraining from wrongdoings by body and speech, controlling one's body and speech, it is called Samvara Sila. When one has volition to refrain from things, when one has the volition to refrain, it is called Cetana Sila. When one is noting the presently arising object with sustained mindfulness, the mind falls calm and collected on the object, and the person comes to know the true nature of the object. When one is noting the object, the mental factors, viriya, sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration are present. At the moment, samavayama, right effort, samasati, right mindfulness, and samasamadhi, right concentration, are present, and these 3 make up samadhi maganga, the concentration group. When the noting mind is direct, when the noting mind is face to face with the object, one comes to discern mind and matter, cause and effect, and when one comes to know any one of the 3 characteristics, impermanent, suffering and non-self, one is developing sammasankappa, right application, and sammaditthi, right view. Sammasankappa and sammaditthi, right application and right view, make up Panya Maganga, wisdom group. At the moment of practicing, there is nothing to be refrained from, and thus it is not Samvara Sila. But as there is volition to refrain from things whenever one has the opportunity to refrain from. It is Cetana Sila. Having Cetana Sila, one is removing Vitekama Kilesa, transgressive defilements. Refraining from things that should be refrained from, one is removing Vitekama Kilesa, transgressive defilements, by Sila, morality. So morality, one practices morality by practicing according to the discipline, and one removes Vitekama Kilesa, transgressive defilements. So Sayadaw explained that much yesterday, and today Sayadaw will continue to explain. The second type is Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements. When Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements, arise in the mind will not be calm, but it will be agitated. When one comes across desirable objects, greed arises and the mind is agitated, shaken, perturbed by greed. When one comes across unpleasant objects, undesirable objects, anger, aversion arises and the mind is agitated by dosa. And also when other defilements arise, the mind becomes agitated, shaken and perturbed by these defilements. So the heat of these defilements catch in the mind, and the mind is burned by these defilements. The defilements, raga, dosa, moha, lust, anger and delusion, are burning in the mind. At times these fires are burning just a little bit, and at times these fires are burning intensely. Based on the attraction of objects, these defilements arises. These defilements arise based on the attraction of the object, and the mind is agitated by these defilements. Sayadaw gives an example. When water is heated, the water boils. Even if the water does not boil, if it is heated, it becomes more and more hot, and bubbles start to come out from the water. It can even make noise, and the water boils. Just as the water boils, Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilement, boil the mind. The mind becomes heated and boiled by these defilements. When lobha, greed arises, one wants things, and when dosa arises, one wants to torture torment and kill others. And one thinks that I want to get rid of this person, or it will only be good if the person dies, and so on. So in this way, the defilements are tormenting, torturing the mind. And the mind becomes polluted and impure. When the defilements, lobha, dosa, moha, are overwhelming the mind, the person, the mind is robbed away of wholesomeness. So these defilements are robbing the mind, and there can be transgressions. Priyuttana kilesa are the obsessive defilements that rob the mind. When priyuttana kilesa, obsessive defilements arise, the person, the mind, is robbed away of the wholesomeness, and thus unwholesomeness will arise, and the mind will not be calm, but it will be agitated, it will be perturbed. Some people have extreme greed. When they have extreme greed, they can only be satisfied when they get what they want. And some people have strong dosa, anger, that they can only be satisfied if they can kill others, or if they can torment others. So priyuttana kilesa, obsessive form of defilements, boil the mind, and if it doesn't stop there, the degree will get higher, and it can also lead to vitekama kilesa, transgressive defilements, when the person gets to the stage of committing transgression by body and speech. Most of the people do not know that obsessive defilements are burning and boiling inside the mind. Some people purposely culture these defilements. Some people purposely are arousing their defilements. And when these defilements are aroused, deliberately aroused, the person ends up committing transgression by body and speech, and the person commits wrongdoing such as killing or tormenting others. So these defilements are very frightening. So to explain priyuttana kilesa, obsessive defilements, having obsessive defilements, one has not got to the stage of transgression by body or speech. So priyuttana kilesa, obsessive defilements, are in the form of wanting to kill others, wanting to torment others, wanting to take other people's belongings by force, wanting to commit sexual misconduct, wanting to lie, wanting to take intoxicants, and so on. So these obsessions in the mind are called priyuttana kilesa, obsessive defilements. When these obsessive defilements arise in the mind, one wants to commit wrongdoing, one wants to commit misconduct. If one does not know that these defilements are shameworthy and frightening, one will not have moral shame or moral fear from these wrongdoings. When one lacks moral shame and moral fear, one will be negligent and one will fail to perform moral conduct. These negligence are called paṇḍitā, and when paṇḍitā, negligence arises, one cannot control oneself. One cannot refrain oneself from physical, verbal misconduct. So one will be losing one's responsibility as a human being. It is called paṇḍitā. Paṇḍitā means negligence, lack of mindfulness, lack of sati. When paṇḍitā, negligence arises, one fails to refrain from wrongdoing, one fails to have restraint, and one commits transgressions by body and speech. When one does not have control of oneself, it will be paṇḍitā, negligence, and one lets one's mind go freely on these misconduct, and one wants to take other people's belonging by force, one wants to torment others, and one holds the wrong view that good deeds do not bring good results, bad deeds do not bring bad results. And one also holds the wrong view that there is nothing after death. So in this way, there will be mental misconduct, and these are prayutthana kilesa, obsessive defilements. The defilements that can arise in the mind, the defilements can arise in the mind when there is lack of mindfulness. When defilements arise in the mind, it shows that there is lack of mindfulness, there is negligence and failure. By having control, these defilements will get less and less. The defilements that can arise when there is lack of mindfulness should be prevented. And if these defilements arise, one should remove them right away. Just as the doctors say, prevention is better than cure. In the same way, it is better to prevent kilesa defilements from arising rather than curing the defilements that arises. And there is the example, fire should be prevented. And if the fire breaks out, one should put out the fire immediately. In the same way, the defilements should be prevented. One should prevent defilements from arising. And if these defilements arise, one should remove them right away. The defilements can arise in the mind, and one should know that it is shameful and frightening when these defilements arise in the mind. Buddha had given ways to prevent defilements from arising. Having mindfulness, one can prevent defilements from arising. In order to prevent the defilements from arising, one should be noting every arising object. One should be noting rising, falling, and also other objects that are arising at the present moment. In order to note the presently arising object, one should exert ardent effort, and it is called Atapa Viriya, ardent effort. When one exerts ardent effort in noting the arising object, sati, mindfulness, will develop. There will be satipatthana, firmly established mindfulness on the object. When there is sustained mindfulness, the mind will not run elsewhere. There will not be distraction. The mind will fall calm and collected on the object. The collectedness of mind, it is samadhi, concentration. When the person is noting the presently arising object with ardent effort, laziness will not arise. Laziness has no chance to arise. Having ardent effort, the defilement has no chance to arise. Ardent effort, Atapa Viriya, is blocking the way of defilements, and thus the defilements have no chance to arise when there is ardent effort. So it is said that the defilements are removed when these defilements have no chance to arise. There will be wholesomeness. The path of wholesomeness will be opened. Wholesomeness, having sati, mindfulness as chief, will arise. Having sati, mindfulness, the mind is guarded, protected, away from the defilements. So there will be rekha varanakuti, there will be protection, there will be blockage away from the defilements, so that the mind is safe and secure. When the mind is safe and secure due to the protection of the mindfulness, there will not be any transgression. The mind will not be agitated. The mind will not be shaken or perturbed, but the mind will be calm, collected, and unified. So there will be khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. When the three factors, viriya, sati, and samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, are arising, the defilements that can arise by lack of mindfulness has no chance to arise. Viriya, sati, samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration are not giving way for these defilements. So, having mindfulness, these kilesa defilements have no chance to arise. And if the defilements arise, one should note them right away. One should remove these defilements immediately by being mindful. So it is said that fire should be prevented, and if the fire breaks out, one should put away the fire immediately. In the same way, defilements should be prevented from arising. And if defilement arises, one should remove it right away by being mindful. Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration make up Samadhi Khanda, concentration group, or Samadhi Sikha, the concentration training. If one is mindful for 1 minute, there will be 60 moments of developing Viriya, Sati and Samadhi. And one is removing Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilement, for 60 moments. And when one is developing Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration for 5 minutes, there will be 300 moments away from these Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements. By developing Viriya, Sati, Samadhi for 1 hour, there will be 3,600 moments of calming, suppressing Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements. So Buddha had given way to calm and suppress Priyuttana Kilesa, the obsessive defilement. By noting every arising object, such as rising and falling of the abdomen, the mind will be calm and collected. When there is Samadhi, concentration, when there is Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, the Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive form of defilements, will be suppressed. So, based on this theory and practice, one understands that when the Samadhi Khanda, when the concentration group is present, the Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements, will be suppressed, and the mind will not be agitated by these defilements, and thus the mind will be calm and collected. In each of the noting, when Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration are present, the mind is away from these obsessive defilements for that moment. At the moment of noting, at the moment Viriya, Sati, Samadhi are present, the obsessive defilements have no chance to arise. So one should know that by developing Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, one is removing Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilements. Knowing thus, one should be noting the presently arising object, such as rising and falling of the abdomen, without failing, without missing. One should constantly assert effort in noting. Asserting effort in noting Sati and Samadhi, mindfulness and concentration will automatically develop. When noting the presently arising object, one should assert effort so that the noting mind will be pushed towards the object of meditation. Asserting effort in noting Sati and Samadhi, mindfulness and concentration will develop automatically. Developing Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, one will get the benefit of suppressing prayutthana kilesa, obsessive defilements. So it is called swakhata, the practice, and the benefits of practice are in accordance. At the moment, viriya, sati, and samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration are present, prayutthana kilesa, obsessive defilements, are suppressed, and the mind is calm. The mind is clean, pure and clean. So, noting continuously, the pure, clean mind will be developed and cultivated. When defilements such as raga, dosa arise in the mind is inferior, the mind is tender and inferior. When one develops viriya, sati, and samadhi, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, the mind is developed and cultivated. So one should be practicing respectfully, meticulously, thoroughly. It is the duty of the yogi to be noting continuously, respectfully, meticulously, and thoroughly. And if the yogi practices respectfully, meticulously, and thoroughly, the yogi will progress within a very short time. Only when these viriya, sati, and samadhi are continuous, it will be strong. So one should note so that viriya, there will be no gap between the concentration, there will be no gap between mindfulness, there will be no gap between concentration. When there is no gap between mindfulness, no gap between concentration, the concentration will be stronger and stronger. The strength of the concentration will be becoming stronger and stronger amazingly. Khanika sitte kakada means momentary concentration. The collectedness of mind when the mind falls calm and collected on the object. Khanika sitte kakada, the momentary concentration, is defined as khanamatta thitiko samadhi. When rising of the abdomen arises, the mind falls calm and collected on the object. The khanika samadhi lasts a moment. Whenever the new object arises, one should note the object so that the mind falls calm and collected on the object. The mind will be unified on the object, and thus there will be khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. Sopi aramane nirantara pavatamano patipakhena anabi bhuto apitoviya citta nichalang tapeti. Khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, can keep the mind calm and collected just as apana samadhi can. So khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, can keep the mind calm and collected just as apana samadhi can. So when can khanika samadhi can keep the mind calm and collected in the way apana samadhi can? So it is said that patipakhena anabi bhuto, meaning when the nivarana hindrances cannot overwhelm the mind, then In such moment, Khanika Samadhi can keep the mind calm and collected in the way Apana Samadhi can. So it means that when the mind is free from nirvana, hindrances such as kama chanda, at the moment the Khanika Samadhi can keep the mind calm and collected just as the Apana Samadhi can. How can one keep the mind away from these hindrances, nirvana? It says, Aramane Nirantara Bhavata Mano, meaning that Nirantara Bhavata Mano, meaning Khanika Samadhi should be continuous. There should be continuity in concentration. It should be continuous, just like a stream of current. The objects are arising one after another, and one mind should be concentrated on the presently arising object. There should be no gap between the Khanika Samadhi. There should be no gap between the concentration. Preceding concentration and succeeding concentration should be continuous, just like a stream of current. So Nirantara means there should be no gap between the concentration. The concentration should be continuous. When the concentration is continuous, without any gap in between, the nirvana, hindrances, cannot arise. When one's mind is away from nirvana, hindrances, the Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, can keep the mind calm and collected, just in the way Apana Samadhi can. So one should be noting the presently arising object in order to develop Samadhi concentration. And when one's Samadhi concentration is calm, when the concentration is strong, then the nirvana, hindrances, has no chance to arise, and thus one is having victory on these nirvana, hindrances, and defilements. When Khanika Samadhi becomes strong, the mind will not be agitated. One has a very good control of one's mind, and it is very precious. When one can control one's mind, then one's life will be uplifted, and one's life will be away from the suppression of Pariyuttana Kilesa, obsessive defilement, and one's mind will be uplifted. By practicing Sila, by fulfilling Sila, morality, one will be a true human. When one's mind is free from the disturbance, the agitation of these defilements, the mind will be calm, and one will have a humane mind. And today 1 hour is up, so Sayadaw will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.